which means this cycle is slightly ahead of its time. So there is a very high probability that the final Everyone is wrong about Bitcoin's bottom, and if you're waiting for the same price level as everyone else, there's a very high chance you'll miss the biggest opportunity of this cycle. In this video, I'll show you the exact time window, the key price levels, and why most people are looking at the wrong data. And if you stick till the end, I will also reveal my bottom target for Bitcoin. Before we begin, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps support my content. Also, let me know in the comments, when do you think Bitcoin will bottom, and what is your target price for the Bitcoin bottom? I'm curious to see what everyone is expecting. Now let's get into the video. So first, let's see what the historic data says. So the first halving was at 2021. Bitcoin created a top in 2013. It took roughly 367 to 371 days for Bitcoin to create cycle top after halving. Then it took roughly 410 to 420 days for Bitcoin to create a cycle bottom from the cycle top. The second halving was in July 2016. Bitcoin created a cycle top in 2017, so it took Bitcoin around 525 to 526 days roughly to create a cycle top after halving. Then it took Bitcoin 363 days to create a cycle bottom from the cycle top. Similarly, after the 2020 halving, which was our third halving, it took Bitcoin around 547 to 549 days for Bitcoin to create a cycle top after halving, and it took roughly around 376 days to create a cycle bottom. Now our lastest halving was in April 2024. It took around 481 to 535 days roughly to create a cycle top. Now majority of the crypto investors have the same question in mind. When is Bitcoin going to bottom? So as per the historic data, the average time Bitcoin takes from the cycle top to bottom is roughly 383 to 400 days. Bitcoin created its cycle top on October 6, 2025, which means as per historic data, the cycle bottom should happen around October to November 2026. And if you go on social media, this is what majority of investors or top traders are expecting to happen. And this is where I think majority will go wrong, because if everyone expects the same thing to happen, there is a probability it won't happen, because market works on liquidity, and in market, majority always loses. Now, before I tell you how low will Bitcoin dump and why I think majority will lose the final bottom buying opportunity, let me confirm one thing, that Bitcoin will bottom in 2026 itself. Because if you consider all the Bitcoin cycle, Bitcoin always hits its cycle bottom 1 year after cycle top. So there is a 99% chances Bitcoin cycle bottom will be this year only. Now here is why I think there is a probability that majority will fail to catch the cycle bottom again. Now like earlier cycles, this cycle is slightly different. That is because earlier there were not ETFs. Not sure how many of you noticed, but in the earlier cycle, Bitcoin had never broken its previous all-time high before halving. But in this cycle, Bitcoin broken its all-time high before halving, which means this cycle is slightly ahead of its time. So there is a very high probability that the final bottom of this cycle could come slightly early. And let me explain why. If you check the weekly chart, you would notice, whenever the RSI has dropped below or touched to 30 levels, Bitcoin has always formed a bottom exactly on that time frame, or it usually forms bottom within 5 to 6 months of RSI hitting this level. So RSI is one of the best bottom indicators out there. So if you see that this year in 2026, Bitcoin's RSI has already tapped the oversold zone once in February 2026. So if you go by the RSI data, Bitcoin should form a bottom around July to August 2026. Now obviously there is no guarantee for this. You can also get a final bottom in October or November 2026. That is one of our scenarios based on the historic data. But based on the RSI data, Bitcoin has always formed a cycle bottom within 5 to 6 months. Now obviously this is not a set rule. Every cycle is different. But yeah, as per the historic data, we currently have two scenarios. Either we get a cycle bottom in October to November 2026, which is what majority of people are expecting. And in another scenario is we get the bottom early based on the RSI data, and it can happen as early as July or August 2026. Now coming to the main topic of this video, how low can Bitcoin dump? So in the cycle 1, Bitcoin dropped around 85%. That is from $1,150 to $170. In cycle 2, Bitcoin dropped from $19,000 to $3,200. That is a crash of 84%. In cycle 3, Bitcoin crashed from $69,000 to $15,500. That is a crash of 77%. In this cycle, which is our fourth cycle, Bitcoin top was at $126,000. So far, Bitcoin has dropped just 53.77%. But if you go by the historic data and do the math, the average drawdown is 82%, which means the drop can be as low as $22,700. But don't panic, because this average mostly won't work here, because the drawdown percent has been shrinking each cycle, from 85% to 83%, and finally 77.5%. So if you go by that trend instead of just averaging, the next drop might be smaller, maybe in the 65 to 72% range, which would put the bottom closer to $35,000 to $44,000 rather than $22,700. So coming to the conclusion, Bitcoin should bottom in 2026 itself, but we have two scenarios. The first one is bottom in Q4 of 2026, around October to November. This is what majority of traders are expecting. And the next scenario is early bottom around July to August 2026. Expected cycle bottom price is around $35,000 to $44,000. Before we wrap up, I really want to hear your opinion. What do you think will be Bitcoin's cycle bottom? What's your target price? When do you think Bitcoin will bottom? Let me know your prediction in the comments below. I read as many comments as I can, and I'd love to see how your predictions compare with mine. That's all for today's video. I spent a lot of time researching historical data, analyzing multiple Bitcoin cycles, and putting everything together to make this video as accurate and informative as possible. Lately, the channel has been struggling with views, and videos like this take many hours of research and editing. If you found this video helpful and want to support my work, the best way to do that is to smash the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps more than you might think. And here's a challenge. If this video reaches 100 likes, I'll make the next video revealing when Bitcoin could form its next cycle top, along with my complete Bitcoin price target based on historical data and market cycles. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
I'd like to quickly tell you about our VIP group, which starts at just $6 per month. Inside, we share trading signals, monthly roadmaps, spot setups, and swing trade opportunities. As many of you know, I had already warned VIP members to start taking profits before. Every month, I share updated roadmaps based on liquidity and market structure, and they've been performing with a strong level of accuracy. I also recently shared my 2026 final bottom scenario, exclusively with elite members, including my long-term market outlook. Unlike many groups, there are no long-term lock-ins, no ridiculous upfront fees, and complete transparency. So if you'd like to stay one step ahead of the market, check out all the links in the pinned comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
No paper thrills. Fortunes in my wallet, got that blockchain skill. Making money at the speed of light, feel the